Evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Hope you're all well out there. As usual, I've just got to click a few buttons in the back office here. Yeah, hold on. Oh, that's not showing yet. Hopefully, last week we had that weird thing when there was like two simultaneous videos and like had low numbers. Yeah, well, hopefully that's not going to happen. It doesn't look like it's happening this week. Yeah, as usual, guys, it's not legal advice. We're going to do our best here to be helpful. And please don't, it's just last minute question. Oh, well, I'm going to try and answer these questions. Last minute questions coming in. See if I can get this one up. Hold on. Right. Yeah, trying to multitask here, not doing a great job. Let's put that thing. So yeah, no, so don't share personal data in the chats. Ask questions as what if questions. And oh man, this is going badly wrong. I should have checked the last minute questions just before we went live. I'm gonna have to just like, it's being weird. Okay, we're just going to go for it. Okay, yeah, not legal advice. Don't share personal data with the chat. We've got one question that's coming through the week, which is not anonymized. And given we've just had a new question literally just come up now, let's do that one first. I just can't actually see the full thing on. Here we go. Right. So,
Have you pinned the normal comment, Mike?
I've not even got that far yet. So if you could you possibly write that, Shannon, because that's the bit I'm struggling with. Um, so yeah. Let's get a blank thing up on the screen. There we go. So, first question for tonight is this one. Just zoom in a little bit. What if someone has a telephone interview and the housing officer told them that once they submit all the documents, they'll give them a PHP, but later the housing officer mails them to them and claim they have given the PHP, what to reply to them, how to proceed with this further discussion. So if you've been given a PHP, presumably it's going to be in an email, right? It would be weird to like have a PHP which is not just been emailed to you, unless I'm missing something there. So I think if it was me, I'd go back to the housing officer and say, when did you send it? Yeah, how did you send it? Can you send it again, please? Because obviously they've got a copy of it. They can just email it across. So if I misunderstood that question, I think it's basically that easy. Just go back to the housing officer and just get them to send it again. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to add to that question. Hopefully that makes sense. You guys got anything to add to that one? If not, that's all good. Thanks for putting that comment on there, Shannon. This could be a fantastically short live stream. I'm just going to get the other question that came in as well. So no live stream. I don't know if it's, yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe we're just not as interesting as we used to be, but the numbers are right down. I know last week there was a kind of issue with YouTube a little bit. Anyway, the technicalities. But I guess it might be we end up kind of dropping this down to like once a fortnight or something, just depending how things are. So if you've got any thoughts on that, guys, let me know. Next question is this one here. So I don't know about part 7. Is that not automatically done when reaching out to the council? What exactly does it do? So this is a good question. Explaining the difference between part 6 and part 7 is like one of the most complicated things because it's been designed in a very complicated way. I'm just trying to just never mind, I won't do that. Because if you want housing from a council, there's two ways to do it. There's part 6, which is the kind of generic application to the housing register. And then you've got the process which happens, it should happen automatically if you're homeless. And the code of guidance is very clear on this, that if someone approaches under part 6, so they just go through the normal process to apply for social housing, but in doing so, they give the council reasons they might be homeless, then that should immediately be treated as a homeless application rather than a Part 6 application. It matters because there is no interim emergency accommodation or temporary accommodation under Part 6. So if, for example, you apply to the Part 6 form without knowing it, but you tell them that you're experiencing domestic abuse, you don't actually have to use the word homeless. You just need to give them reasons you might be homeless, which can be done in a number of ways. Then that should be treated as a homeless application. So if you're kind of wanting to know where we get that from, it's from 18.6, the Code of Guidance. So Code of Guidance is just a kind of rule book for councils. You can Google it; it's freely available. And 18.6 just it makes that point exactly. Now it's hey, right, Mo. Now it's complicated because Part 6 and Part 7 have symmetrical principles within them. Sometimes they're called exactly the same thing, like local connection, which means different things in each part. So they have the same phrase, local connection, but in every council, there would almost always be a different definition of part 6, but there'll always be the same under part 7. You've also got things like, part 7 says intentional homelessness, whereas part 6 will have something in there about kind of knowingly worsening your housing circumstances or deliberately worsening your housing circumstances. You've got priority need, which is a part 7 term, and then you've got things like priority points, medical priority, which is a part 6 term. So, and you've got housing need and homelessness, and you kind of got these mirror images of them. Part 7, the kind of the law is always the same, the kind of criteria is always the same all across England, whereas part 6, councils get to set their own criteria. So generally, the closer you get to London, for example, with local connection, the more and more strict it will get. I mentioned Hillingdon quite a lot because in Hillingdon you've got to have lived there for 10 years to get local connection under part 6. So yeah, in terms of the kind of it should be automatically done, but probably one of the main ways that councils, well, not the main way, a very common way that councils gatekeep people accidentally almost, is by having a kind of an IT system which is not fit for purpose. And so you'll have lots of people going on the council's website, filling in the housing application form, thinking you're making a homeless application, but it won't necessarily be treated as such. So that's, I did the video on the channel a while ago now, the best way to make a homeless application. That cuts through the kind of risk of that happening. By not using the council's form, by sending an email to trigger the homeless application, there is no doubt what you've done. So I probably talked about it before. In Bedford, we had an issue where people were filling in the council's website form, giving the council reasons they might be homeless, therefore triggering Section 184, and yet the council missed it, and they essentially did something to their IT system to fix it. So basically, if you said certain things, if you tick certain boxes, then a human being would, in theory, have a look at the application immediately to check that they're not missing an actual homeless application. So, if you are trying to end homelessness in England somewhere, you should be challenging your local council in those kinds of ways just to get them to improve the system. So, it's not just about helping individuals out, although that's certainly a good thing to do, but it's also about improving the systems that people are working within and getting things to work properly. Shannon?
Yeah, I think it's probably just worth saying as well, even if you enter the council process under Part 7 of the Housing Act, you will probably have to interact with Part 6 at some point. So more often than not, most councils will have you apply to the housing register as part of either preventing or relieving your homelessness. Because that's where like the social housing is kept basically. So it's not necessarily a huge red flag if the council says, "Oh, we're now going to apply to this." But if they do sort of palm you off initially, it might be. But yeah, you'll have some interaction with the Part 6 of the Housing Act as well. So it's always worth. I'm sure we've mentioned it a million times before, but looking up your local allocations policy, because although certain criteria, like Mike has said, like local connection, priority need, etc., is Part 7, and that's national. There will be other things that are more locally set. That's worth sort of having a look to see if you can get bumped up the list, essentially.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. And yeah, similarly, again, if you're kind of looking to end homelessness in your local area or try and end homelessness, every 5 years they have to renew the kind of housing allocation policy. So every 5 years you'll get a chance to input and push for improvements in it. And again, in Bedford, our one is coming up for renewal in the next few months. So again, once it comes out, we'll be kind of all over it. 5 years ago, we got all but one of the things we asked for. So again, I'm probably sounding a bit frustrated this week. I've seen things which are quite annoying this week. If you think you're ending homelessness, but you're not engaging with the local council, then I don't think you're ending homelessness. Basically, you're doing something else which isn't ending homelessness. It might look like it, but it might not be. So you if you're a professional, use your experiences of helping individuals to see what the issues are, but then you need to bump those issues up to the political level at local councils. Um, Local council democracy is like the best kind of democracy because you actually can make a difference, whereas national politics it's almost impossible. So hope that will make sense. So there's a question. So someone's saying they've got a question, but haven't seen the question yet. So we are out of questions. We've answered all the questions here, both of them. So unless you ask a question very quickly, we're going to call it a night, basically. The couple of announcements. On the 28th of October, we're doing a free webinar. Me and Will are doing a free webinar, which is basically, I think it's called like everything SWEP workers need to know about homelessness law. So SWEP, for those who don't know, appreciate it's a bit of a jargon, is like the severe weather emergency protocol. So it's kind of often like a church hall or something where people can come in when certain weather conditions are met, when it's particularly cold or whatever. And it's been going on for, I've been involved in those sort of things for like 12 or 13 years. I say I've been involved. I've kind of, been aware of them in the local area. But it can be such a good opportunity to engage with people and actually kind of do an intervention which actually gets them housed. Unfortunately, a lot of those kind of services have absolutely no literacy with the law at all. And so, they do a great job in kind of putting a roof over someone's head and keeping them warm, but they miss the opportunities that are actually come out of that by getting the homeless application in. So we're just kind of doing a 90-minute, just kind of like whistle stop tour of what the law is, and that just underlining that homelessness is a legal process and you can actually get some good outcomes by using it. There'll be more of those things as well. So I think we've got some questions coming in. Right, so what is the best way to submit a freedom of information request to a London council? What details to include to make it more likely to get a better response? I'm gonna answer that question, but I suspect it might actually be potentially a different question. I might be wrong about that. So there's two similar processes to get information out of a council. One's called the freedom of information process, and the other is the subject access request process. And the subject access request process is used to get your own personal data effectively from the council, everything you hold about you, or you can ask about kind of like other documents without personal data through the F.O.I process. So it might be that's what the person means, but for sure. In terms of the best way to make an F.O.I, I don't know. There's a lot of science to it. I've never had a situation where, I've made hundreds of F.O.Is in my time, and sometimes they just don't respond to it. But most councils will respond to it, even if they kind of like they've missed the time limit and stuff. I know Shannon's like she's also FOI'd every single council in the country and had a similar response. Most councils respond, even London councils respond. It might, there's a number of things they can do to knock you back. So one might be to say that the information you've asked for is going to take too long. There's like an 18-hour time limit of man hours to actually find the information. So you might get a response to say, it's going to take too much time to answer that question. If they do say that, they should also ask, or they should suggest you how to refine the search. So if you ask for data for a whole year, they might say, well, that's too much effort. But if you just refine it for a couple of months, then you will be able to provide the data. So that's the F.O.I process. If it's the SAR process, I would strongly recommend going on the ICO's website and and basically there's a service within the ICO website which does the SAR for you. So if you input the council's details and the kind of the email address, the SAR will come from the ICO, which I suspect is going to be much more effective at getting a timely response from councils. But again, my experience of SARs is actually pretty good. They generally will respond even if they miss stuff out. So anything to add on that one, guys? I'm hoping that's answered the question. Also there'll be an F.O.I section of the council's website, and you can see the hundreds and hundreds of other requests that have been made. Shannon?
What do they know as well?
Yeah.
Is a website that has lots of different councils, F.O.I requests and stuff, because sometimes the local authority will say, oh, this has already been asked. But also it's just a good idea. It's like the LGO database. It's just a good idea of like how people are asking questions, and you can see how the local authorities respond and what's easy for them to do. Like although sometimes part of making an FOI is to be difficult and to cause them time to get them to think about the issue, you do sort of want to make it easy for them, because then you're going to get more answers essentially. And then just Martin's question, I tried putting the link in the live stream chat and I've now been blocked from commenting because I think they think I'm spamming it. Yeah. So I believe it's 3:30 though, isn't it, Mike? I put it into
Yes.
our Zoom chat so you can do it. But
Yeah. So it's 3:30. It'll be recorded, so it will end up in like on the YouTube channel a few days later, 3:30 till 5. Me and Will did one on this last Tuesday on like looking at intentional homelessness, and again, I wanted is to have it up on the YouTube channel already, but it takes a little bit of time to process it, so it should be up by tomorrow or Saturday. But yeah, it's just if you're there live, obviously you can ask questions live, but yeah, the information will still go up there. And I think probably what I'm thinking more of is anyone out there who knows people who work in sweeps, just to share it with them, because so I was thinking sorry, I sound so like whingy this week. So I'm just aware of how many charity CEOs are out there who have never like challenged the council before at all. They've never helped someone make a homes application, and so they just don't know they don't know this stuff exists, which then kind of perpetuates and kind of means their workers don't get training on it. So yeah, you've got a lot of sweeps where they've never heard of housing law. They don't know that there are laws to house people who are homeless in many situations. So I think I'm kind of also be great if you could just wing it about a bit, share it about with any contacts you might have. So there's a bit of like a follow up here for this question about the F.O.I process. So let's just stick that together with that. Are London councils more likely to respond, give a better response to solicitors as opposed to regular person? What details or how would a solicitor structure freedom? So yeah, so as I say, I'm not sure if you mean freedom of information here, because a solicitor would have seldom reason to make an F.O.I. That it does happen, but it's just not that regular. I think you mean a subject access request, which is, as I say, looks similar. It's often the same department that deals with it, but it's a different thing. So you've got the F.O.I Act 2000, I think it was, and then you've got the Data Protection Act 2018, which kind of sets out the structure. So but yeah, I think my experience of getting people's individual personal records from the council is both essential, but also one which, if you don't get the response within the time frame, you just complain as you would any other kind of complaint and just run it up the chain to the ICO, who will then investigate. But yeah, if you go on the ICO's website, there is that kind of service. And as I say, I would speculate that when a council receives a SAR request from the ICO, it's probably going to have more weight. Whereas a solicitor, solicitors request personal data all the time in terms of like the housing file. But I don't know, Will, do you struggle do councils like drag their heels? I expect they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do it deliberately in the sense that it would be any different if I was somebody else. I mean, obviously, if I was sort of the Queen or public, top person or something, that they were aware that people were watching them, they might be doing on their best behavior. But it's touch and go. I mean, some councils. I mean, I can share this with you. Maybe this would be a good time to share it with you. I got a response from the Information Commissioner's office about a failure by a local authority to dis comply with a subject access request. But my simple answer to this question is they tend to be pretty slow at it, but that's not deliberate, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you do have when you get the documents back, you just need to check they have actually like included everything, and obviously you don't know that all the time, but you'll be able to cross-reference it with other stuff you know has happened. Like,
Mm.
so if you send an email and that hasn't been included in the SAR documents, then you know they haven't checked it properly. So yeah, cool. Next question. Oh, so okay, so yeah, we're going to stick with this theme for a minute because there's just more to it. Otherwise, yeah, it just makes sense to do it now. So so they do mean F.O.I. F.O.I request asking council what percentage of single homes applicants for a one-bed property are ending up being discharged into the private sector, and what percent? That's a sensible F.O.I. If you've made that F.O.I, they might, as I say, they might come back and say it's going to take too much time for the time period you've asked for. So just ask what time period can you provide the figures for. But realistically, those kinds of figures, they will be at their fingertips. They have systems in place that will be recording exactly those kind of stats. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if this person has had some difficulty getting information yet, but I would have thought that's not going to be a terribly. Like a lot of times you do an F.O.I, they'll send it to you immediately because they just have it. It's just really easy. So at the moment I've got an F.O.I in with Bedford Borough Council because I've asked for all their template letters that they use for writing homeless decisions because I want to just see how bad they are. because I've seen one recently that is really bad, the actual template. So yeah, there's a question specifically for you there, Will. How long do you find it takes to respond? Well, I guess as I say, this slightly cross purposes is because I don't know how often you do FOIs, Will.
I do them. Oh no, I hardly ever do for FOIs. Sorry, I do subject access requests all the time.
Yeah.
But I find FOIs. I mean, I can see why the question that you think if it's a solicitor, they're not going to maybe fob you off with sort of this is disproportionate amount of work involved in answering your question type stuff. But I don't know, not particularly. I mean, it's so long since I did one that I can't say for sure. But I haven't been thinking they're really slow on these. What I tend to find is that they tend to be really difficult. And there's usually excuses for not doing things or not giving you stuff.
I'm just thinking that there's a group of councils in East Anglia. I think Colchester is one of them. I'm just going to look for it now. Colchester Housing, because basically they pool all their housing services, but they publish loads of that sort of information on their website already. So sometimes you do an FOI, and they'll say we're not going to respond because it's already on a website publicly available. But yeah, it was interesting, like I say, the difference between different councils, like how transparent some are compared with others. But there's this, they say there's like a group of 8 councils, like East Anglia, like Suffolk and kind of Basildon and those kind of places, where they had loads of data that just publicly available, like, even to the point where you could see like what kind of sub-district people were getting housed in, how long they had to wait for that housing. So it's yeah, pretty cool sometimes. Yeah. And then similar question, how long's so subject access requests are supposed to take 30 days. You complain on day 31, and it takes like maybe a few more weeks probably after that. So yeah, next question is this one here. I have a question about the council making someone I support homeless after a succession has been denied by the courts. How can we prevent her from being made homeless? So succession is essentially a bit like inheriting a tenancy from a deceased person. You can only do it once. So if someone in a household does die, it might be worth thinking through who is actually going to take the tenancy on. There was another household where there were 3 elderly brothers all in the household together, and the middle one died, who was the tenant, and then they passed the tenancy on to the youngest brother because he was most likely to live longest. So but in terms of like how do you prevent it becoming homeless? If the succession has been denied by the courts, then homeless application, the person's threatened with homelessness, it'd just be a case of just kind of running through that process really. You got anything to add to that at all, guys? No. So yeah,
But I can say one thing. The good thing about, well, sorry, this isn't meant to sound funny, but one of the few good things about having a failed succession application is that you're unlikely to be found to be intentionally homeless, because it's completely out of your hands. And the other thing I'd say, I'm sorry if you have been representing this person. I'm sure you thought of this, but if they've been denied succession, remember to have a look into the possibility of a discretionary tenancy, because most councils have a policy, or housing associations as well, have a written policy regarding when they will consider granting a discretionary tenancy to somebody who it would be maybe everyone agrees it would be unfair to deny staying in their home.
yeah. I remember a situation I was helping someone out with where it was like a long-term partner. They weren't married, and the tenant died, and initially the housing association denied that they'd been in a relationship that long. So part of the work was basically evidencing that they had in fact been living at the address, which was kind of things like getting GP records to show where the address was. But ultimately, we then made a homeless application, which motivated the council to get back to the housing association to kind of lean on them a little bit to kind of exercise that discretion. So question for you actually, Will, because I don't think me and Shannon know this one. I remember working with a guy once whose parents died. He was like an adult. His parents died, and they took like months and months and months to evict him. Once the succession had been denied, they still kind of they were not like they took ages to actually evict him. Is that normal? Like, I mean, like really, like,
Yes.
they just seem to be not not motivated at all.
Off the top of my head, there are certain notices of seeking possession you can only rely on for a short, and you can only have a shot at it once based on succession. But ultimately, you would if they deny you a succession, you'd normally just become an unauthorized occupier, so they can get you out at any time by just serving a notice to quit because you've got no legal right to be there. And so, yeah, it can take a long time. In fact, I've got one. I've got one at the moment. I just wrote to the client today, and it's been going on for about 4 years. And we're just waiting to. I mean, I said to him, I don't want to write to the council and say, "What aren't you going to evict him?" But at the same time, I've said you might want to get some closure on this. But it's just been going on forever. So it can take a very long time. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to multitask here. Hopefully that answered the question. They're just going to check. They think might be a bit more to it. So yeah, let me just add this to it. In fact, right first, right, just guys, whilst I think of it, I'm just putting a link into the chat for a Garden Court Chambers event. It just ties in with the question someone's asked. But so Garden Court's one of the best chambers around, and they're doing a webinar in a few weeks on the 13th of November, so nearly a month, which is about displacing homeless families, how to challenge out of borough discharges in homelessness law. So these three of these kind of barrister chambers or whatever they're called, they do like regular webinars like this one, which is free. They do other events as well, which aren't free, and they also have a YouTube channel. So check out Garden Court and check out Doughty Street, both their YouTube channels, but also check out this event because, yeah, me and Will are going to it because I think it's just going to be really good stuff anyway. But I get why I'm just now kind of realizing why the person's asking about the F.O.I process, and actually this is a potentially really good use of the F.O.I process. I get where we're coming from now. So if we go back to question 3 and add this to question 3, so an individual who's made a homes application with the London Council was offered a property in the private sector 2.5 hours away out of London, and it is unsuitable due to medical needs. Now, the unsuitability of medical needs, that was a standalone thing. But I remember Doughty Street used the F.O.I process for one of the North London councils. I can't remember which one because they just so happened to be housing everyone in Coventry. And each time they're saying, "Oh, there's nothing closer than Coventry," and Doughty Street Chambers were like, "Well, you're housing everyone in Coventry, so are you really going to try and say that every single time you have to house someone, it just happens to be Coventry?" And that basically it helped them kind of win the case and the council to lose the case, because there are plenty of London councils who managed to find housing within London, so it's not impossible. It's just seems like it's pretty obvious ploy to discourage people from like asking for help, really. So yeah, that's what I'd add there. Again, Will and Shannon, feel free to just kind of add to that. So there's it's not a question as such, but it's just something about the SWEP. So let me just bring that. So I've had a huge issue with SWEP in this area, as they've arbitrarily gatekept the SWEP provision without proper scrutiny. Yeah, so this is a problem where you've got things like SWEPs. So SWEP's not like a legal thing as such. Like the council has the power to commission SWEPs, and it's seen as good practice, but it's not legal. And what that means is you'll get kind of the way they run it won't be subject to proper scrutiny. They'll often be kind of like just unfair rules and stuff like that, which are misapplied. So there's loads of problems that are caused because of that sort of stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, as I say, our aim with that event is to try and upskill and kind of tell people who are running SWEPs actually what else they could be doing, and hopefully improve practice. That's the thinking behind doing it. Plus, SWEPs are about to start opening up soon because the weather's obviously getting colder. Right, we're going to addition here to question 4. So she was formerly a carer, but the nature of the bond with the tenant was disputed at Court of Appeal. It is a self-contained one-bedroom property. The council proceeding with eviction homelessness application. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if we can add anything to what we've already said there. But yeah, homeless application I think is the route. So yeah, yeah, so just kind of more stuff about the out of area placement. I mean the kind of the out of area channel. I mean, yeah, we're going to find out what Garden Court say because they're probably going to say a lot more than I can. But the kind of the crux of kind of out of area placements is, or where councils tend to fail, is they don't actually properly consider the medical needs of those of the household, and that's kind of where they kind of fall down. So actually, I don't think it's terribly difficult for a solicitor to actually successfully challenge an out of area placement, but it is a lot harder for lay people like me and Shannon, or kind of people who aren't solicitors but who don't have easy access to judicial review. But yeah, I think, yeah, and just to kind of say, as we always do, if you're offered something, take it, and then have the argument with them. Don't reject it, because you run the risk of having nothing at all. But yeah, practically speaking, it's just nightmare, isn't it? You get housed 2.5 hours away, and then even if you win the thing, you're gonna have to move back in, back again. It's just crazy. So yeah, that is all the questions that are in there. I was thinking I'll maybe put a notification on the channel. I'm toying with the idea next week of running just hosting like a Zoom meeting, just for open for anyone really, because I'm working on a decision tree for homeless applications in general, but specifically priority need to start off with. So let me show you what I'm talking about, just to give you an idea. It won't take very long, but this is an idea of a guy that me and Shannon know pretty well. Proper cool guy, and because this came off the back of the priority need training that I do. But kind of this process, I'm going to turn it into like a visual thing. But it basically, it kind of gives you pointers. When you receive a negative priority need decision, it kind of gives you like a cheat sheet of working out what you can challenge it on. So there's I think I've done like 26 questions now, something like that. These they all kind of come at a different angle of vulnerability. So question one: does the letter identify all the relevant potential sources of vulnerability? And the reason that's in there is because many council officers just miss really important things, like particular diagnoses, whatever. So it kind of it says yes, okay, we'll go to the next one. No, challenge the decision and just introduce the new information. So I'm working on this document at the moment. It's obviously still a draft, but I might put something up for people to join if they want to, just to sort of more, two heads are better than one sort of idea, that we can just kind of populate this process in a bit more detail. Also, I'm going to try and have a kind of a reference for each thing as well. So this second one, for example, relates to these two cases here. So yeah, keep your ears pinned back for that. So yeah, I think that's it. Just a quick question about succession denied. So succession is when I think, just the person who missed it, it's when you inherit the tenancies, with a very clumsy way of saying it, but that's what the idea is. Okay, guys. Well, we will see you next week.
Can I just jump in with my comment about the Information Commissioner?
100%. Yeah, go for it.
Because the case I mentioned a while ago, where they've been taking like 4 years to issue possession proceedings, we were trying to get a copy of the council's file in that case, and let me just I copied it down. We got no response from the council, so we took it up with the Information Commissioner's office, and we made a complaint in March, I think it was. No, sorry, we made the complaint in May 2025, and we received an email message this week that said the Information Commissioner's office is dealing with a significant number of complaints at the moment, which means it is taking longer than we would like to allocate your case to a case officer. Your case was received on 22nd of May 2025. In terms of our oldest cases, we are currently allocating cases in March 2025. We hope to be able to allocate your case, wait for it, in the next 29 weeks.
Where's the maths? Where's the maths there? Because if they're dealing with one's March, surely it's going to be 2 months, logically, unless they're a spate in April or something.
Yes. But then it says, we know that when we receive a complaint, the issue is important to you. Once your case is allocated, the caseworker will contact you to explain what will happen next. But I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? So I think we worked that out. That's It's basically 6 months, isn't it? And on their estimate, I agree. Assuming the maths that they've come up with is right somehow, it's 29. That is getting on for a year, really, isn't it? Because it's October now, so it'll be March 26, and that's only when they allocate it to somebody. I
So it'll be a
mean,
few more months after that.
yeah. So I would have thought that anybody that's getting subject access requests can sort of put their feet up. And I mean, I suppose that it may be that in a year's time, the Information Commission's office will throw the book at the council concerned, but
Yeah.
it gives them a bit of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's it, because I mean the ICO has the power to issue really big fines, and but again it seems very haphazard, like when they do that and when they don't. But yeah,
Mm,
I mean, if you haven't got enough capacity to investigate complaints, you think you compensate that by just throwing some really big fines to councils that don't comply. It's all very miserable, isn't it? It's just like,
mm.
how to like just under resource all the kind of ways that you can actually challenge a council and get hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Um, So just to Martin there. So yeah, love yeah. If you've got something to share, then hopefully, if you haven't got my email address, you can probably figure it out. But yeah, it'd be good to kind of join up with and kind of just yeah build up some kind of document like that just helps people out. Um, so just another bit of a follow-on question here that's just popped up about the succession again. Should bring it. Oh, not that one. This one. So yeah, so I think Will's probably answered this actually. So, can the local authority do anything under the prevention duty for her to remain in the property? So yeah, I mean, I think as Will mentioned, like there may be a discretionary policy that the council can apply discretion to that case, and yeah, and that. But other than that, I mean, the prevention duty at that point, in theory, the council are motivated to help, and but ultimately, yeah, if that fails, I don't know what else might work, to be honest.
I think that's a really good question, though, isn't it? Because if the people in the homeless team or the housing options team dealing with the prevention duty look at it, they could end up sort of making representations to their colleagues as to, why they should maybe consider a discretionary tenancy. And they might look at it more kindly if it's colleagues. But could I just add one thing? Earlier I said you won't get found intentionally homeless. Of course, that's not necessarily true because I'm just assuming that you are somebody that lived somewhere for a long time with a relative and they passed away, and then you got told, sorry, they were a successor, or sorry, we only allow spouses to succeed, or something like that. But you definitely wouldn't be intentionally homeless then. But if you'd say moved in 2 weeks before they died and they said you're a scam artist and we're not granting you a succession for that reason, or we're not recognizing a succession, you could be intentionally homeless for how you gave up the last place. But so I should qualify that by saying if you've been living somewhere for a long time and it's not your fault that you were denied a succession on a technicality, then I think it would be very difficult for you to be intentionally homeless because it was settled accommodation and you lost it through no deliberate act, no fault of your own. So yeah, that's the end of that.
Cool. Um, there's a question here, like just following on this theme. How should a regular person structure a subject access request? What to include? Are councils more likely to respond to solicitors? How does a solicitor structure a SAR? So, I mean, Will can answer that in a moment. In terms of like us regular people like me and Shannon, often there's like a specific form, but it's a bit like a homeless application. You don't have to use a specific form. You can just email the data protection officer at the organisation. It's not just councils. You can do any organisation. And basically, the kind of basics of the answer to that question is you want to if I was doing one, I'd basically work out, okay, when did that person first have contact with the council? Let's say it was March 2025, and I would specifically request data going back to February 2025 just to make sure I've captured all of it. And you can ask for like specific services, but really um, there's no reason not to ask for as much as possible. So because the problem is if you only request certain things, only like certain periods or certain departments or certain issues, then there's a good chance you might end up missing something which is actually important. So I would basically be, I might phrase a SAR something like, please provide all documents relating to housing. And if adult social care is involved in it, all documents relating to adult social care. just to make sure you try and get it. Shannon?
Yeah, if you're a professional, you don't often have to do this, but if you're an individual making a subject access request on your like for yourself, they'll often ask for various forms of ID and proof that you are who you say you are. So, again, if this was me, I'd include that right in the email. Most local authorities have a page on their website about what they'll need, or what they'll need to provide. So yeah, and also how you want the information given to you. So like, do you want it as attached to an email? Do you need a paper copy, etc., etc.? I think after a certain amount, can they charge for the paper? I can't remember if that's FOI, isn't it? Ignore me.
Yeah, no, no. So
Um,
I think that I think there can be. I don't know. There used to be something where you'd have to pay like an additional fee for like you have there's ridiculous amounts of it, but I don't think there is anymore.
yeah. But yeah, request how you want it, basically, like how you want the information. And yeah, be prepared to prove who you are.
Yeah, cool. And Will, do you have anything to add to that? Like in terms of when you do it, do you even use the SAR process technically, or do you just say, "Give me your housing file" for that client?
Yeah, I just say I make this request pursuant to the Data Protection Act, and that's it. And I say I calculate the time limit to be X, and then that's it.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, and just a follow-on question as well in terms of how long does it take a average London council? We don't know. I mean, all we can say is make the request. They've got 30 days within the law. They might go over it. You have to complain. I mean, the answer is whatever the average might be. The fact is you might have to fight to get your records, and you just need to do that as quick as possible. So there's no reason to delay it. And effectively, you just have a zero patience policy with them. They've got they've got to respond within 30 calendar days. And if they haven't, then you immediately, if it's me, and I've done this many times, I'm immediately sending a formal complaint to the chief exec. I'm figuring out which councillor it is that covers like governance, information governance. There will be one, and copy them in and just make a fuss. That's proportionate because it matters. It's going to make a difference. So yeah, I think that's it. As I say, Martin, if you want to make contact, that'd be awesome. See if we can collaborate a little bit on a document. But so yeah, just to say, so what that question just been put in there is you want to do that through the F.O.I process, not the SAR process, because that's just asking about kind of stats that the council has rather than like individual data. I mean, in one sense, if you kind of make a SAR to the F.O.I team, they'll say this is a SAR. You need, and I think that actually the time limit was still kicking. It's a bit like you can make a homes application to any department of the local authority, so it shouldn't matter which one if you get it wrong, then they should still basically count it and get cracking. So yeah, cheers guys. We'll be back next week. Check out Eventbrite, the Homelessness Best Practice Eventbrite page, because we've got these free webinars coming up. Plus, we've got the usual training. We've got this demonstrating priority need training, which I'm really happy how that's going as well. It's a new course. But other than that, guys, we'll see you in a week's time. Hope this has been helpful, and thanks for the good questions.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.